and this is the Money Matters program. I'm Troy Davis, the president of Davis Consulting Group. All right, for all my listeners out there, if you are a small or medium-sized business owner, or if you're looking into start such a venture, or in fact, if you're part of an executive team of a medium to small-sized business, this program is for you. This morning, we're going to be talking about corporate restructuring and mediation. And on the phone today, I have with me David Sussman, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Valcor. And good morning, David.
Good morning, Troy. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. David, Valcor is a company that can help small to medium-sized businesses that are starting to get in trouble. We all know what the economy is doing, very difficult. But before we get into the details of that, I'd like to talk a little bit about Valcor, your background with that. I know that you've got both a psychology and business major, and you started in 1994 with this company, and you're nationally known. So give us a little bit of background on Valcor and what you do, David.
Sure, thank you. Well, Valcor is geared towards providing a solution to small business owners that are facing problems that they can't get out of right now. They may be dealing with short cash flow problems. There may be a liquidity squeeze. They may have receivables that are owed to them that are not being paid. And all of a sudden, they find themselves in a position where they're unable to meet their obligations, and they have vendors, creditors, banks contacting them. And the business owner all of a sudden becomes under siege with worry and pressure, and they're unable to get themselves out of trouble. Many of these businesses, without our assistance, would end up resulting in bankruptcy or closing the doors. We find solutions for our clients. We save the client's business, keep their employees employed, and allow that company to continue being a productive member of the economy and growing from that point forward. And so it's a very rewarding business that we're in. We saved literally between my team here and our licensees that we've trained over the years, literally thousands of businesses worldwide. And it's obviously we're very, very busy today.
Yeah, I imagine that you are. And, I know that you oversee just a world-class group of associates who are there to help out these, businesses that are struggling right now. And we know there's just tons of them. I mean, it's all part of our economy right now. You're also president of the International Association of Business Mediation. What's that involved with?
The International Association of Business Mediation Consultants is a nonprofit organization aimed at providing alternatives to business owners outside the court setting. So we work with a good number of attorneys, lawyers, solicitors, and the reality here is this, is that most cases that are filed in court today between a creditor and a debtor client can be handled outside of the court setting. Now, this is not legal arbitration or mediation or court appointed, but it comes back to the term that we have created over the years, business restructuring, and we basically sit down with both parties and work out the solution. So yes, as president of the IABMC, saved a lot of businesses the turmoil of the costs and the worry and all of the stress that business owners are facing when they get involved in litigation.
And that's one of the topics I want to cover here as we get moving forward is I think many business owners, when faced with this enormity of creditors and even the federal government perhaps with taxes, et cetera, start coming down on them, it's so easy to fold. Where's help? What am I going to do? And the over worrying of that can actually cause even more problems instead of addressing it head on and taking care of those issues. And David, you also you're well versed and quoted such on CNN, Money, et cetera. So I really appreciate your time to talk about this morning on the Money Matters program. Now, today's economy in the United States and, in fact, in the world is struggling. We all know that. Housing prices have seen the steepest drop in 25 or 30 years. They've just, taken a huge hit. Foreclosures and short sales, other distressed properties are at all-time record levels. The unemployment rate, they're claiming to be somewhere in the mid-9s up to 10. You and I talked earlier. We know it's much higher than that. We'll talk about that as well. And basically, we're seeing probably the worst recession of our lifetimes. And it's especially bad for these mid to small size businesses. Now, if I can paint a little good picture within that context, and that is that consumer confidence is rebounding, and that does have an effect on small businesses. And some of the banks are lending again, although I think it is with much stricter guidelines, and it's just a trickle. There's nothing really big coming out of that. But the slowdown that has happened with consumers and buying and ordering and that sort of thing has caused that financial trouble within these small businesses. So now the demand, beginning to rise. There's businesses are starting to have difficulty getting additional financing they need to survive. So before they start looking at bankruptcy, before they start saying, I'm going to fold my doors, this is, I think, where you can come in, David, and say, hey, here's what we're going to do. So let's talk a little bit about the restructuring. Where does it start?
Well, usually the business is in a position where, let's say, for example, let's bring it down to brass tacks here. Mm-hmm. You own a business and you owe $100,000 for goods or services supplied to a creditor, and your business is humming along. Let's say you're making widgets, whatever the product is. Usually you will have your receivables paying on time, and from those receivables you take your working capital and you pay your creditors. And all of a sudden you have one or two large clients of yours owing you, let's say, $80,000. You needed that $80,000 so that you can meet payroll, pay insurance, taxes, and obviously your creditors. And those clients go belly up, or they just stop paying, or it's 90, 120, 150 days in arrears. The cash flow has stopped. Typically, what has happened in the last couple of years is that you as a business owner will take a look at some alternatives to try and bridge the gap between collecting on those receivables, meeting your obligations, and oftentimes a line of credit may already be established, or you would want to establish that with your local bank. And as you mentioned correctly, we're in a credit crisis. Banks are no longer lending. The $30 billion is a drop in the ocean as far as what the government has just approved to start lending through the SBA. And so as a business owner, if you're facing any kind of slowdown in your business because of the economy, it's very, very hard to get the kind of loans that you need to continue reinvesting back into your business. So not only do you not have the receivables that are owed to you, you no longer have the line of credit or the financing solutions provided for you. What do? And now you may be receiving a lawsuit or collection agencies contacting you. Morale at your company is starting to suffer. I mean, don't think for a moment that the receptionist at the front desk isn't sharing the fact that
right.
Taking angry phone calls from creditors with people in the break room.
Right.
So all of a sudden, people are starting to wonder,
we're doomed.
We're doomed.
Yeah.
And look at the unemployment rate. How am I going to get a job? So morale starts to sink, productivity decreases, and it starts to becoming the perfect storm. And the business owner is a human being. You as a business owner, you're stressed out, you're worried, you're sleepless, and you don't know how to resolve this issue. You're very good at creating marketing dynamics for your widget or your new products. But when it comes to solving these problems, what do? So you talk to your attorney, you talk to your CPA. And your attorney is very good at putting together a contract for you. Your CPA is very good at putting together a tax return for you. They may suggest you may want to take a look at bankruptcy. But that's about as far as they go with any suggestions. Instead, what we do is we provide some solutions which essentially take the pressure off the business owner by working directly with the banks, with the creditors, restructuring the business in such a way in which cash flow is now flowing again. There's several ways that we do that. And without getting into the specific, it comes down to bringing in capital, restructuring the debts in such a way in which you may not end up owing 100 cents on the dollar to the creditors and still maintain a relationship with the creditors so that they can provide the goods or services needed for years to come. Keeping everything outside of the court setting so that you're not paying attorneys and legal costs and deposition costs and court fees and everything else that goes along with it. And at the end of the day, the result is that we keep the business solvent. We keep cash flow coming in. We have working capital for the client. And in many cases, the client can go on and be more successful than they were the last couple of years without the worry and the stress of this sword of Damocles, if you will, hanging over them.
And David, you're speaking of supplying capital or structuring some sort of capital. What is the balance of that from institutional type lenders compared to private sector?
It really does cover a wide gamut. We ourselves have access to over 300 categorized lenders that are able to provide the different kinds of lending based upon our client's disposition. You may be looking at traditional type of situations. CRE, commercial real estate, is a big area right now that's in a lot of pain, as you know only so well, Troy. And there's a lot of money out there that's looking for different types of projects. There's hard money loans, there's factoring, there's different types of working capital programs that are out there. It really depends upon our client's disposition. And look, if a client is in big, big trouble and they may be suffering from a corporate credit problem because they've been in trouble for a little while, there still may be programs that are available out there.
Well, I imagine also there's a situation where there's a risk tolerance. If somebody takes a look at them and says, well, that's one heck of a widget you have there. Okay, I understand you're in trouble, but it's because of this. It's because of maybe you didn't get those receivables, or...
I think it comes down to, you're absolutely correct. It comes down to the fact that in business, people are people. And you're dealing with people, and people make educated decisions, usually logical but emotional-based decisions. And the way that we present our client's disposition to whether it's a creditor or a bank or a lender is going to dictate usually the perception that that party will have on our clients. Look, some of our clients, or I should say potential clients, are too far gone, and we're not going to be able to help them. I mean, just unfortunately, that's the reality of the situation. But if we sign up a client and we've qualified our client, 95% of the clients that we work with, we are successfully able to resolve their situation in such a way in which they can go on and be a productive member of the community.
That's a fabulous percentage. That's really, really great. Yeah, and like you said, part of this stress factor, it's like the business owner, can I pay my employees? Like you said about the groundswell, if you will, around the coffee machine is, did you get your paycheck today? And that could just bring stress upon everybody.
Our focus is to work with the creditor or the vendor, and in many cases we're dealing with attorneys representing those parties, or we're dealing directly with banks. Your largest banks, your Bank of America, your Wells Fargo, and the like, look, they're sitting on trillions of dollars, and they've got funds set aside for non-performing debt portfolios. And they're just write-offs, and they're doing fine. They've been bailed out, and thank you very much, American taxpayer.
Exactly.
The problem is that, and this is now seeing, and it's evident in the FDIC, is that it's the small regional banks that are in the biggest trouble. And it is the small regional banks that have invested a large percentage of their 30 to 40% of the bank's holdings are now in local real estate, commercial real estate specifically. 30 to 40%. And your small banks are the ones that are in trouble. And the FDIC, I think we just finished in 2010, the highest number of bank casualties, I think it was over 140, okay? Banks that have literally been closed down by the FDIC because they were underwater, because they had invested too much into the local area. It's those banks that we're dealing with. Apparently, according to the FDIC, there's over 900 on what they call the endangered species.
Right.
In other words, banks that are in big, big trouble, that have a very high odds-on favorite of failing. You're not talking about your Bank of Americas or Wells Fargo's. You're talking about the bank of your local corner.
Right.
Drive by 1,000 times, and they're in big trouble. And we know how to deal with them. We know how to work with them and resolve these situations.
Oh, that's fabulous.